I speaking to an old high school buddy today. His name is Donnie Ganak. We met him in when we went to Lakewood to bake matzah. So I shared with Donnie some thoughts, and Donnie shared with me some thoughts. And he's obviously a huge Torah scholar and very learned. And he told me that I said, "Give me something on the Haggadah." He said, "Okay." He said to me, "Why does it say the four sons?" I never heard this before, but he said that the four sons correspond to the four avos, to the four patriarchs, Now you might say, what do you mean the four patriarchs? What do you mean the four patriarchs? Because there's only three patriarchs. So he said that Ramchal, or Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, says initially, just like there were four matriarchs, initially it was intended, initially it was intended for Esav to be the fourth patriarch. So it's supposed to be Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Esav. Never heard that before. This is why you have to talk to your old buddies. They give you some stuff. And so he says originally it was Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Esav. And so he says the four children correspond to that. What are the four children? Wise, that's Avram, because Rambam says Avram came to God through his wisdom. Tam is Yaakov, because Yaakov, it's called Yaakov Ish Tam. Yaakov is a pure man who sits in the tents. The one who doesn't know how to ask is Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the one who passively accepted. He has a persona of passivity. And then the wicked one is Esav. Esav had all his potential and he went wicked. And in fact, it says also here in the next paragraph after the four sons, it says, I will give to Yitzchak and Jacob and Esav. And I will give to Esav Mount Seir to Resha to inherit. So you see that that Esav was originally intended to be part of the covenant, but he lost it. So he was originally part of it. Anyway, this was my friend's Vort, so I share that to you in his name. May we merit every time you speak to a friend before Pesach, an old friend or somebody you don't speak to a lot, ask them for an idea on the Seder. Okay, so now back to, we've been discussing the four children in general. That why does it say Echad Chacham, Echad Tam? What is the meaning of the word Echad Rasha, Echad Shein Yudisha? One Chacham. So some say Echad means whether he's a Chacham, whether he's wise, whether he's wicked, that's how some understand it. But some say that it refers to, like we saw yesterday with the Dinaver from Tzvi Elimelech, that you were saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, like one, to say that God is in all of these children. That's Reb Tzvi Elimelech, who's a nephew of Reb Elimelech. Okay. The Yerushalmi has a little bit of a different version of these four sons. The Jerusalem Talmud says, Tani Rebbe Chia, it doesn't call it the Tam, it switches in the Jerusalem Talmud. It doesn't call him the simple son, but it actually calls him the foolish son. That's much more derogatory. The Tam is not necessarily derogatory. Jacob is called Tam. So, but the Jerusalem Talmud calls it Tipesh, and our version of the Haggadah switches it. So that's something to note. Okay, so now we're up to the wise son, the Chacham, the wise son. And of course, by the way, on Shabbos afternoon, we're going to study the Haggadah at length. We're going to go into Shabbat Hagadol Dvar Torah. We're going to study it, maybe a 2-hour study session. So bring your chometz food and study it up. So the Chacham, what does he say? So let's read the passage of the Chacham, and then we'll go into it. The wise son, what does he say? He says, the wise son says, Ma. Hold on, I want to get his language precise. The wise son says, What are these laws, these testimonies, these judgments that God commanded you? You say to him, you say to him the laws of Pesach, you don't, and that last phrase is unusual. Usually it's translated as, we don't do anything after the Korban Pesach except the Afikomen, which is actually not what the words literally mean. So let's see how they interpret this, the Chacham's question in the Haggadah. So Chacham Ma'u Omer. So the Ritva says that from his question, because from his question we see he's really being precise about all the laws of the holiday, we see that he's wise, because he says in his question, what are these edus, chukim, umishpatim? He's referring to a whole bunch of different things. What are these laws, testaments, and statutes? Meaning he's trying to encompass everything. So from his question, we see how he's in the weeds, so to speak, and he really wants to know everything. So the Rokeach, again, the German commentary, he says that he's called a Chacham because he knows all of the miracles that God did to our fathers. But so he knows all the miracles, but he's just surprised about the laws that we do. So he's called a Chacham because he doesn't understand the laws that were not mentioned. He doesn't the laws that don't have a reason. And Rabbi Yisrael Brona writes that a Chacham is mentioned here. It doesn't mean he's actually wise, because if he was really a Chacham, he wouldn't have asked. It means to say that he has Chacham b'koach. He has energy. That means to say he's very energetic. He wants to know everything. He's going to track it down. So you see from here, if you're very energetic, you're called a Chacham. Geshmak. Very energetic, you call it Chacham. Did your buddy come today, Moshe?
Not today, I don't know.
He dipped. He dipped. Who else dipped? Oh, Elon? Okay, they dipped. All right. Chacham Ma'u Omer. I know the lingo, just so you know. Okay, so there's a lot of different approaches to understanding the Chacham's question and the answer. I'm going to just share with you the top six. Top six, here we go. Chacham's question and answer. Rashi explains that the Chacham is asking his father, why do we eat on this night the Korban Chagiga before the Korban Pesach? A very esoteric question. Korban Chagiga was a supplemental sacrificial offering that was eaten on the night of the Seder, in case you didn't get enough meat from the Paschal lamb. So you eat two meats. You eat the Paschal lamb offering, and you also eat the Chagiga offering. So he's asking the question, why are we eating the Chagiga, the Chagiga offering before the Paschal lamb, when the Paschal lamb is the main mitzvah? We should eat that first. So the father answers the child.
I always wondered that. Why do we eat the Korban Pesach for dessert?
That's in the right. So that's what he's asking, basically. Why is the Korban Pesach eaten last? You're the Chacham. Very good, Akiva. You're like the Chacham. It's beautiful. So the father answers that really, technically speaking, we should eat the Paschal lamb first. But because we have this answer that you can't eat anything after the Afikomen, because we want the taste of the Afikomen to stay in your mouth, and therefore, since you can't eat anything after the Pesach, therefore you have to eat the Chagiga before the Pesach. And the Ritva answers that because we want the taste of the matzah to stay in our mouth, therefore we will remember the taste of the matzah the whole night, and we'll talk about it for many hours. By the way, I think I once wrote an article, you could find it if you Google maybe, about Afikoman. The word Afikoman is very strange. The Gemara talks about what it means. Afiku minayachu, the Gemara in Pesachim says, take out your desserts. Like, what are these? Like pigeons or nuts? That the Gemara understands it to be desserts. But the scholars of the Talmud say it's actually a Greek word. A Greek word. Afikomen comes from the Greek word called, anybody know? Nobody knows Greek here? Epikomizon. You know what the epicomyzone was? So the epicomyzone is, and by the way, the only reason I'm saying this is because I did this research when I was a student, so that goes back 30 years. So basically, it's not like I'm currently doing the research. I did it when I was young. So the epicomyzone is what the Greeks would do when the Romans and the Greeks finished a party. They would not be satisfied with that, so they would throw themselves up. It's like they would give themselves what do you call it? An emetic, like they're taking a colonoscopy. They put themselves, toss themselves up and then go to the next party. So that's what afikoman probably comes from, efikomizon, meaning to say it's like the last food you eat. But we're saying, don't do that. Don't do that. It's disgusting. Keep it in your mouth. You're not allowed to throw it up afterwards and go to another thing. You have to keep it in you. It makes a lot more sense now, actually. You could always share that at your meal if you want to get a nice reaction. Nobody throw themselves up at this time. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Yakar, by the way, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Yakar was one of Rashi's teachers. So he explains the question as follows. He says that the wise son was asking about, here, guy, grab Haggadah. He says, the wise son was asking about the law, because there's two things. There's something called Pesach Mitzrayim and Pesach Ladoros. Pesach in Egypt and Pesach for all generations. Because the way they observed the Paschal Lamb, the way our ancestors observed the Paschal, the Exodus, the Passover holiday in Egypt was not done ever again. It was just that one time. You take the lamb, you tie it to your bed, you put the blood on the doorpost. We don't have to put the blood on our doorposts anymore. It was just that 1 year. It was a one-time thing. So he's asking, are we supposed to observe all these practices that were observed in Egypt also for future generations? And so, and the Torah says, what do you say to him? You say to this wise son that you teach him all the laws of the Torah and also the other laws, like the laws of the Pesach, meaning to say, you teach him how the sages interpreted the Torah. And what the sages understood, meaning that the sages, we have to understand the Torah with the oral Torah. So that's what you have to teach him. That he was saying, well, why don't we do exactly like it's written in the Torah for all future generations? And your response is, no, we teach him all the laws and how the rabbis understood it. Yes, Mr. Burt.
Is there any law that's only a one time?
Yeah.
Well, what's another one? Those you just the Pesach wasn't.
Oh, are there other examples of?
613.
Well, I don't think that will be counted as one of the 613 because it was at that time, and we don't do it anymore. So it's not counted as a 613. But other examples of laws that were only done at one time, and we don't do them anymore.
One time.
Yeah.
Well, you mean
kill them all.
No, a Moek you have to keep doing until you get rid of it. You have,
Once it's done, they can't do it again.
yeah, but there's a lot of times you have to do it. But another example of laws that you only had to do one time in history are, for example, when you went up Mount Sinai, Moshe said no ox is allowed to go up, no people are allowed to go up on the mountain until we sound the shofar, and then you could go up. So they were prohibited from going up Mount Sinai until they sounded the shofar.
it's a one-time event though.
That's what I'm saying to you. This was a one-time event. The Exodus from Egypt was a one-time event. That was the point. This is preparation for the Exodus. In fact, the Talmud tries to bring in, the Talmud tries to raise that question of if the ox went up on Mount Sinai, what will be its punishment? So the Talmud then responds, why do we care? It's a law for Madhava. What happened. Why are you discussing something that's never going to be relevant again? The Talmud comes its answer. But anyway, okay, the Rashbats gives another answer that the wise son is asking, why are we giving out this food, the candy, the nuts to the kids before the meal? The whole rest of the year, we eat these nuts at the end of the year. And the answer is that this night is different because on this night, we can't eat after the meal. We have to give out the dessert before the meal because we can't give out the dessert after the meal because you can't eat out anything after the afikomen. That's a clever answer. Okay. Yeah. You don't like that one? You like that one or you
No,
don't?
I like that. My granddaughter will like that.
Okay, there you go.
Gives
There-
me energy to sit through the.
Yeah,
system.
right.
Well, the energy is associated with the chacham. Chacham means you have a lot of energy. The fourth one comes to the Shibboleo Laket, and he explains that the son sees his father counted with the neighbors on one Paschal lamb. That everybody, in order to, we're taking the Paschal lamb, you had to register. You couldn't just show up. You had to be a planner. And sometimes they each just get a very, very small portion, and they're very careful to eat it. But the rest of the holidays, we don't all gather together. Everybody eats by themselves. And so therefore he's wondering, why do we have to eat this together? The whole world, usually we just celebrate with our own household. And so he wants to know if it's because of the love of the Pesach, you could just send gifts to a friend, like other sacrifices. And so the answer is, because you're not allowed to go from one home to the other. You're not allowed to go, like you do sukkah hopping, you're not allowed to do Pesach hopping. You have to stay where you registered and eat the Paschal lamb in that place. You can't go Pesach hopping. You can't start your Seder in one place and then go to another Seder in the other. I mean, Seder doesn't have the exact law of the Korban Pesach, but I'm saying that's the idea. That's the idea. Yes, Thera.
Second question. So what is the literal translation? Because there's nothing about eating there. Imaftirin,
Right.
maftir, like a finish or.
Right. So that's what I said. The literally is very hard to translate, but amaftir means we don't finish after the Pesach and then afikomen. So it's hard to literally translate it, but maybe saying we don't eat a dessert after the Pesach. It's afikomen and that's it.
There's nothing about the food there. It's just, that's implied.
Yeah, it's not it's a very hard phrase to translate. That's what I was saying. Okay, so another explanation comes from the commentary called Simchas HaRegel, which I'm not sure what that is. And he says that the wise son is asking that at the time of the temple, when the temple was standing, then it made sense to show these signs of freedom that God took us out of Egypt. But now we're in the bitter exiled. So therefore, why are we rejoicing? This is a very relevant question. For all of us this year, many of us are deeply praying every day for people we know who are in distress, who are still hostage, who are mourning. So why are we rejoicing? We're in exile this year. So the father responds, hold on, let me take out my AirPods. I just realized. So the father responds, now whatever we do, it's like the laws of Pesach. And we're certain that we're going to do them again in the future, that God is going to redeem us. Meaning to say, we promise we have to keep the laws of Pesach, whatever we do. And we know we're going to again have the temple and bring the Paschal lamb. And that's what it means, maftirin. Mean to say, even after the Paschal lamb, there remains a taste. And that's what we're going to go back and do it. And so therefore, the reason why we're remembering the Pesach is to strengthen our faith in the redemption. So I don't exactly see how he finds that in the words "emaftirim," but that's what he says. But the gist of it is that the Chacham is saying, why are we celebrating when we're in exile? And so he's saying that the answer is that the taste of the Paschal lamb still remains. And therefore we have to guard the Pesach and keep it with us, and keep the Afikomen with us to remind us for the redemption.
When the Mashiach comes, do we continue celebrating Passover?
We discussed this.
Or
No, we discussed this. No, we discussed this. No, we discussed. We're going to continue celebrating it, and this is a verse. We said that this was a verse in where was the verse? I believe it was a verse. Remember we said this? I think it was 2 days ago. It was a verse in Jeremiah that they said there'll come a time where you replace the redemption of Egypt with the redemption, the current redemption. So we're going to still talk about the Passover redemption, but it won't be as prominent as the most recent redemption. But we're still going to talk about it, and we're going to bring the Paschal lamb. Finally, the last answer that we'll share about this topic is from the Marsham. And he says that the main aspect of the telling of the Exodus and the service of the night of Pesach is to plant faith about the God's providence in this world. And so therefore the wise son asks his father that they were in the desert and they saw with their own eyes their miracles. Why we have these laws? Because what was the purpose of these laws? If they were in the desert, for us, we need these laws because we need to strengthen our faith. But they were in the desert and they saw everything. For what did they need these laws? So the father responds, so we want the taste of the Eimaftirin for the Achar Pesach Afikomen, means to say to plant the source of faith that will last forever. Meaning to say, who's asking the question? The wise son is asking it in the desert. He's saying to his father, why do we need to remember these miracles? Why do we remember about the Pesach? We've seen these miracles with our own eyes. So the father is responding, no, we want the taste to extend for all future generations because not everybody's going to be and seeing this with their own eyes. And so it's your job to tell it to the future generations. And so therefore we have to do actions to show what was going on. Wow, this time flew. Yes, Jerry.
Yes, would you please repeat what was unique about the past